because obviously this comes from the end of September. Trump issued an executive order saying that he's going to ban the teaching of critical race theory not only in the federal government but also via he's going to withdraw contracts from private companies that teach critical race theory that have contracts with the federal government. This was an amazing feat when you put it into the framing of the sort of battle of ideas, whose moral structure should be put forward, because critical race theory has a lot of presuppositions built into it that are frankly antithetical to the liberal ideal of judging people by the content of their character rather than the colour of their skin. Critical race theory, as you might well take from the title of it, is entirely based on racial judgments. And so Trump ended it. He said this: I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military and our schools all over the place. We were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really they were teaching people to hate our country, and I'm not going to allow that to happen. Now, I've spent quite a lot of time studying critical race theory because it seems that this is the ideological lens that is the source of what we can call wokeness. And I think Trump did exactly the right thing there. The Department of Labor weighed in saying that the elimination of race and sex stereotyping and scapegoating in employment was a key civil rights priority of the Trump administration, and that they were going to root out ideologies that label entire groups of Americans as inherently racist or evil in diversity training materials by searching keywords such as white privilege, systemic racism, intersectionality, and unconscious bias. Completely correct. This is exactly the right thing to do, because critical race theory is predicated on the idea of raising racial consciousness among a certain racial group. Now, raising racial consciousness was precisely what, and I hate to go Godwin's law here, but it's exactly what the Nazis did. The very purpose was for every individual German to view themselves as a political actor, a political agent, because of their race. So in all times and all places, the political German has become something that exerts power on other racial groups. And it's the same thing for critical race theory. The politically black person exerts power against the white supremacy. And this means that all of liberal democracy has to be recast in a racial mold. So liberal democracy itself is now not merely a set of ideas that happen to produce good results for individual citizens. Now this is an expression of the white racial consciousness, and basically it's a framework that is designed to exclude non-white people. I've got many criticisms of this line of thinking. Obviously, I don't subscribe to this at all, and you can check out my Conservatives Guide to White Fragility on the website. Premium content if you'd like to know more. But the question was, is Joe Biden, is his administration likely to overturn this executive order? And it seems that it is likely that he will. USA Today reported that a Joe Biden administration would likely scrap an executive order from the Trump administration that restricts the federal government and its contractors from offering diversity training that Trump labeled divisive and un-American. Trump's executive order gets rid of it all, blah, blah, blah. Frank Turner, a partner with law firm McCarter & English, who represents the multinational contractors and small and medium-sized companies, told USA Today that he thinks it's highly probable that this executive order will be rescinded in fairly short order. And we have a quote from Joe Biden's Latino Agenda Manifesto. So he has racial manifestos and racial agendas on his website, which I think is the sort of thing the Nazis would have done. Again, I hate to bring it up, but it just runs totally antithetical to how I think all of our countries should be run. But in it, he said he will also reissue and mandate strict compliance with the Obama-Biden executive order to promote diversity and inclusion in the federal government. And as you can tell by the words diversity and inclusion, they are ideological words. They are sort of shibboleths that the activists can use to identify that they are on the same team. If you say, well, I'm very much in favour of diversity and inclusion, they will be expecting you to... It's a
dog whistle.
It's a dog whistle. They will be but it's not even just a dog whistle though. I mean, they use them in a way that they consider to be legitimate. For them it describes something that is definable. And anyway, presumably this would supplant Trump's proposed patriotic education that won't teach people to hate their own countries. And this, frankly, is bad news if Biden does turn out to win, for anyone who at least isn't a racist. The racist will be thrilled. This is exactly the kind of reason, this is exactly the kind of policy, I imagine, that people like Richard Spencer actually voted for Joe Biden to enact. Because raising racial consciousness was core of the alt-right's message, which is one of the reasons I was so opposed to them, and one of the reasons they hated me so much, because I'm an individualist. And raising racial conscious is explicit collectivism. So the only people who benefit from this are the racists.
I wonder, though, do you reckon Joe Biden has thought this through himself, or is it just the activists have written this for him?
I don't suspect for a second that Joe Biden really understands any of these things. I think that Joe Biden has, throughout the course of his life, been an intellectual grifter, where he's just been ripping off other people from various other countries and other people's speeches, and he's lied about his own educational achievements. I think that he's just a fraud.
I don't know, I mean, I wonder, because there's been a screenshot put out of like, oh, the first things I'll do in my days of administration. I don't know how genuine it is. Yeah. But the wording they used there was he wanted to rescind Trump's ban on diversity training within the federal government. Yeah. I can imagine him saying that, we should have diversity training. It's a good thing, that kind of nonsense. But he would never speak in the terms of critical... he would never speak in the terms of critical race theory or saying he wants, what is it, the manifesto here, to ensure political appointees, including the president's cabinet,
would be diversity hires, ensuring racial diversity among clerks, staffers, and interns. So he's going to have a lot of racial affirmative action policies. He's going to bring back critical race training, and he personally probably doesn't understand anything of the philosophy behind it and the way that it's framed, but he's going to hand it off to a bunch of academic activists who are going to be trained Marxists in the quotes of the Black Lives Matter founders, and they'll be allowed to indoctrinate people across all of these systems, and it'll go as far as they can push it. The only thing that will stop them is just where they've run out of money.
I mean, this is happening in the UK for what? I think Tony Blair brought this in initially, so it's been like 20 years.
Well, the discipline seems to have been evolving quite rapidly.
Oh, I just mean when you start applying it through the national government.
Yeah.
I believe it was him who, well, I think Peter Hitchens talked about this, where it was him who first introduced that everyone working for the national government in the UK had to sign up for promoting, I think it was diversity and inclusion or diversity and equality, or some garbled word. And that was essentially the first instigation of this sort of thing in the UK. And it's been going for 20 years, and it's not good. Like, this doesn't produce any good results.
No, it's been going for longer than that. It was in the 60s and 70s that this first came out of critical legal scholarship in the United States. This has been a genuinely long march that they have gone through these institutions. The critical race theorists came out of that. By the late 90s, it probably was in roughly the form that we recognize it now. It probably had the basic outline. But there's been an awful lot of evolution in its own sort of wheelhouse to get all their ducks in order, get everything to be interlocked and say, no, everything's a white supremacy, black people are oppressed, all of these things are aspects of the white racial conscious.
The nailing down of the hierarchy, that white women, not really part of us.
And the rhetoric as well. Of course. But the rhetoric as well, the angles of attack against what we could describe as normal discourse. Because what this is all predicated on is the idea that they have the ability to change the definition of the words that we're using. Because if they would say, oh, well, you're a racist, what they mean is that racism is a system of structural inequalities and oppressions that are going to be holding black people or brown people down forever. And it's like, okay, but that's not what I believe. You can't really accuse an individual of being a system. It doesn't make any sense. So if we allow them to redefine racist, then calling someone a racist is no longer an insult. They would have to just call you prejudiced or something like this.
But they don't care because it's all about
power.
But
they don't care. It's Mott and Bailey. We'll use your definition of racist when I'm accusing you of hating black people, but we'll use my definition.
We'll use the other one.
Yeah, we'll use my definition of racist when we're talking about whether we live in a fair and just society. And so it's completely backwards. But yeah, it seems that we have ample evidence to suggest that Joe Biden will indeed reinstate critical race theory. So let's hope those recounts happen.
God, you can look forward to, what was it? There were some leaks from, I think it was the RAF, of what they were teaching the RAF to do. So they can look forward to people in the US military calling each other zuh.
We in fact have an article about that, do we not?
Yeah, we do. I don't think it's premium actually. It's free.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Free article on loadseats.com about the wokeification of the British military.